morning. My name is Vanessa Wagner, and I'm the Marketing Program Manager with Georgia Power Community Economic Development. Really excited to be here today with Sebastian with Arcum. I had the opportunity to meet Sebastian while hosting an event for Grow Georgia. For those that aren't aware, Grow Georgia is our platform that helps aggregate resources for diverse and small businesses all in one place, everything from funding to certification training, mentors. So it's a one-stop shop for our entrepreneurs statewide. And fortunately, I got to meet Sebastian and learn about the really cool innovation happening in our hub of innovation, Atlanta. So Sebastian's just going to share a little bit more about what he's working on, as well as some advice for other founders throughout the state of Georgia. So Sebastian, please introduce yourself to our Grow Georgia audience.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vanessa. My name is Sebastian Builes. I am the co-founder and CEO of Arcum. We ultimately work with credit card processors or payments companies to predict when customers are dissatisfied or unhappy. What that means is, by identifying customers who are unhappy, these are customers who are likely to churn or go to another provider. And by doing so, we actually provide proactive retention tools so our clients can retain more clients, grow their portfolios further, and increase customer lifetime value.
Okay, that's a lot. And I do know that Atlanta has a bit of a fintech hub. I think something like 6 out of 10 of the largest payment processors are in Atlanta. Am I right about something like that, right?
Yeah, they don't call it Transaction Alley for no reason. So I think it's, this figure has been thrown around. Something like 70% of all payments come through Atlanta at one point. You have some of the largest organizations in here, including, Global Payments, NCR. I myself came from Evo Payments. That's kind of where I got my strides into payments. And my co-founder worked doing a lot of fraud for Pfizer. So very versed in the payments industry, kind of became enamored by it when we first got to dabble into some of the payments data. And, 2 years later, here we are together and, making some good strides. And hopefully we get to inspire some other founders in the state of Georgia that wish to take a stab into entrepreneurship.
Cool. So I know you said you saw your partner has some experience in the fraud. What inspired you to come up with the solution that you're implementing through Arcum?
Honestly, if you think about it, Vanessa, the way that we handle customers has not really changed much. For the most part, you guys at Georgia Power are a little different, but for the most part, when you're looking at a fairly commoditized business, competitive industry, where consumers or companies have choices, it becomes relatively easy, or how do I say this? It becomes very relationship driven to keep that account, right? And for the most part, we stay in touch with our clients, buy them flowers and the birthdays, etc. But it's not driven by data or anything or any insights for that matter. It's purely based off relationships. Who we do business with, relationship driven, especially in the B2B space. So what we're trying to do is ultimately change that. And by facilitating or providing an alternative, a proactive alternative, we hope that our customers can actually retain more of their clients can actually be happier. Eventually, solve problems that may potentially arise before they actually become a deal breaker, right?
That's very cool. Certainly is a lot easier to retain clients and keep them happy than try to go out and all the costs associated with finding new ones.
Exactly. And how we got started, my co-founder and I, we actually used to do churn models for the newspaper industry. So think of, McClatchy Corporation, think of the New York Times. They would ultimately analyze subscriber data to identify what subscribers were likely to churn. So we did this fresh out of grad school. Myself and my co-founder, he happened to be in the data science department. I was one of the consultants. Shortly after, we parted ways, and I ended up going into Evo Payments. He ended up going into essentially do fraud prediction for Pfizer. We had no idea about this when I came in maybe a couple years later to pitch him this idea. He just sat there and listened to me talk for like 30 minutes and then eventually said, I do fraud for Pfizer, right? And from that point on, we got to the races, started running some initial pilots. We really understood the payments industry, and we're approaching this problem, which is been present for a very long time. Yet nobody has really tried a way to uh, find a long-term solution for the churn problem that is present in the payments industry.
Awesome. And clearly you are providing a valuable solution, because I know that you were recently selected to be one of the Venture Atlanta Showcase companies. Can you tell me a little, congratulations, that's awesome. I know it was like a
Thank you.
sold out event, and my friends like investors in Texas were calling me asking if I was going. So I know I've got some attention nationally. How has that experience been for Arcum and you?
It was phenomenal. I mean, I think that a lot of these, we also won FinTech South earlier this year as well. So it's been, kind of picking up on the momentum. Venture Atlanta was one of those situations where uh, you meet a ton of investors for the first time on Monday. And by the time Friday comes around, you've seen them every single day of the week. So it's sort of like a supercharged relationship. By the time you're setting up some meetings the following week, it really becomes more of a matter. It's like, let's talk about the nuts and bolts. What does your investment look like? What are you looking for in a founder? And kind of dive a little deeper. So in that way, you really fast forward a lot of the relationship building aspect that comes from fundraising, for example. Right? You don't meet an investor for the first time pitching your product and say, hey, are you interested in investing? You probably get a lot of no's that way. So there's a lot of relationship building behind fundraising. So I think Venture Atlanta, being a showcase company, really facilitated a lot of those conversations and really fast forward or sped up that relationship that we built with some of the individuals that we met throughout that week.
Very cool. I liked how you called it supercharged relationship building. I'm going to borrow that for us. Sure. So getting into this space, there's a lot of folks that have a great idea, or they're just starting to implement, maybe they're in beta mode right now. If they're starting out here in Georgia, what's some advice just from your experience would you share with other diverse and small founders?
Honestly, network, network, network. I've come to learn. Uh, it's been 4 years since I left corporate America, two since we got our team together. And I would say one of the things that maybe I didn't pay much attention initially was the networking aspect of it. How it's not so much about having the best product, having the best team, but who can put you in front of your target audience, for example. And initially, it was a lot of head downward building. It never really focused on fostering those relationships with individuals that ultimately will become our champions and facilitate a lot of the conversations, a lot of the meetings with the folks that we wanted to get in touch with. Since kind of joining, Atlanta Tech Village, we really have been able to sort of expand our network very rapidly. So when it comes to actually, asking individuals to put us in touch with top executives at big enterprise payments companies here in Atlanta, or if it's something like a investor reference or getting in touch with individuals that invest within our particular sector or vertical, um, that has been sort of the difference between actually making it or not. So I think that these are things, obviously, if you're an introvert, it might be a little more difficult to get out there. But this is part of the game. It's, if you want to start anything, you need to be surrounded by individuals that either advise you, mentor you, or any form of way that they can potentially help your business move forward. So I think it's driven by a lot of the folks, and to be honest, the tech community here is it's been extremely helpful. Whether it's finding talent to help us develop our product, or getting in touch with investors, whether locally or outside of Georgia, um, that tech sort of network or tech people have been sort of amazing when it comes to actually lending a hand and have that willingness to help you out one way or another.
That's awesome. So the Southern hospitality extends towards our startup ecosystem, huh?
I would say even more than anything, because it's, if you think about it, founders are scrappy, we've been through tough times. Even the ones that are successful have been through, in some way or form, through a, terrible time or through a very difficult time, or, they experience the struggle. And therefore, when you're almost going through that. It's not like, oh yeah, sorry, Vanessa. It's more like, I've been there. It's going to be okay. You'll make it to the other end. And here are some connections that I'll introduce you to in order to really help you out and move forward with your idea, your business, the problem you're solving. So this is kind of, even I would say it's a Southern Hospitality 2.0, where it really becomes a matter of a very close knit type of ecosystem where everybody's willing to help out. If one company out of Georgia wins, we all kind of win in one way or another, right?
So I think you just gave me the title for this blog. It's going to be Southern Hospitality 2.0. Thank you for that.
I'm just coining terms left and right this morning,
Yes.
huh?
So something I didn't prepare you ahead of time, just a fun question. What podcast or book what podcast are you listening to right now, or book are you reading that it could be for fun or it could be educational?
God, I really, I don't, and anything outside of startups, I really like, it's outside of my peripheral podcast. The only one I kind of avidly listen to is How I Built This, Guy Raz. Amazing. It's, in there you hear a lot of stories of, very successful companies that, they all went through their struggles in one way or another. In terms of books, I'm about to finish Burn Rate by Andy Dunn. Sort of the intersection between mental health and entrepreneurship is kind of plays very close to home for me, because I had a very similar episode back in college over 10 years ago. So this with me resonated very well in terms of, the business world. When you talk about business leadership, talk a lot about empathy and leading with some type of care. But for the most part, we still shy away from talking about, mental health and how this is prevalent not only amongst founders, but, a lot of the population, specifically for founders, right? I think founders are more prone to have mental health issues. And these things are almost kept secret or locked away because you don't, when it comes to fundraising, you don't want to bet on maybe an unstable founder, an unstable business leader. But the truth is, we all go through some way or form into, the difficulties of life, right? So kind of that book has really changed my perspective. It's made me more open to talk about my own personal experiences when it comes to dealing with mental health. So big, huge fan, highly recommended. So anyone out there, Burn Rate by Andy Dunn, phenomenal book.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm definitely going to look into that book. And I think you're right. It's so important that we start that we continue having these conversations, because like you said, everyone's going through something, and just understanding that we can all be successful and still talk about our challenges.
I mean, that's, if you think about it, that's the only way that we can really overcome them. It's like, if you have a problem and I don't know about it, how can I help you? Right? There is no way for me to help you and really facilitate. Maybe I have the answers. Maybe I know someone who has the answers. But if I'm unaware of what you're going through, whether it's, a negative experience or a terrible time in your life, I mean, people are willing to help. But if you're not willing to make that call and be vulnerable towards what is bothering you or what is that challenge that you're facing, then obviously, nobody will be able to help you, and you're ultimately by yourself, right? So this is kind of a way, it takes obviously a lot of courage to be vulnerable and kind of open up to people, but that is one of the things that I really appreciate about, the startup community, that, I don't really know a lot of people. When I moved to Atlanta, maybe about a year ago, I started these founders meetups here at the Tech Village with the sole purpose of actually being able to discuss these problems and challenges openly, without any bias or fear of repercussions of how we may look like because we're experiencing these problems. So this kind of forum has grown to, maybe we host anywhere between 30 to 50 founders every month. And it's become a real place for us to openly discuss about these challenges. So, there's someone always in that room who either has experienced what you're going through or has experienced what those particular challenges. So I think being open, speaking about these, and about these challenges, and being vulnerable, it's ultimately the way for us to solve our challenges and overcome them.
Oh, see, I love these conversations. I always end up getting so much more than I expected. So, Sebastian, you've taken us everything from the importance of being vulnerable as a founder to the support that's out there in the community, as well as, places to network. So thank you so much for that. Just one last thing for our audience. You talked about your meetup group. We've talked about Arcum. Where can we find, if someone wanted to connect with you or learn more about one of the meetups you're hosting or about Arcum AI, where would we find all of that?
LinkedIn, Sebastian Builes, B as a boy, Uiles. I'm pretty reachable there. Alternatively, website arcum.ai. If you actually, I don't tell this to a lot of people, but if you click on the get started, it actually goes directly to my Calendly link. So you can book a time anytime if there's anything that I can do to help out, founders, etc. This is, I made every mistake in the book. So if there is anything that I can possibly, aid another founder or another individual who's considering an entrepreneurship as a alternative route to maybe getting a job, by all means, I'll be more than happy to help out and hop in a conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I appreciate this. I look forward to our next conversation.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Vanessa. Hopefully I'll see you soon. All right.